What's that? Who there? Whoa.
The elephant in the room with your business is obviously COVID, right? COVID came seemingly out of nowhere, and then I think was a huge factor that you had to deal with, given people stopped working in the office. So I'd love to hear, your reaction to that initially. Obviously, you've shifted now; you're selling more home office furniture. How fast were you able to make that change, and how has that gone so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's this pretty fascinating experience. I think running a business during a pandemic is probably the best education in just being a founder you could probably ask for. Not that I did ask for it, or that we would have preferred it the other way, but it's been really great to see what our team can accomplish under duress. So in March, we had done our best month of revenue to date. We had done $800,000 of revenue, so close to a $10 million run rate after like about a year in business. So things were going great. And then literally within 2 weeks, and we had a bit of a warning because our factories are in China, they were shutting down. So we were like, okay, this could get bad. We were starting to kind of batten down the hatches. And then in March, when COVID hit the US, is like brutal. Like our pipeline literally just evaporated. And in April, we basically did, about 90% less revenue, or 10% of what we had done. Um, and so we knew we had to do something. I think, unlike many of our commercial real estate peers, we had this pretty obvious pivot, right? Okay, like all these people have to be working from something, like whether it's at home or in the office. And so let's just get them there. But yeah, rebuilding the company to be D2C, like it took a Herculean effort across the entire organization. We basically rebuilt the entire funnel, right? From acquisition, moving from sales based acquisition to traditional growth marketing, paid acquisition, affiliate, all kinds of new channels that we had to experiment with and figure out like basically immediately. And then moving down the funnel to uh, um, uh, distribution, fulfillment, figuring out packaging, figuring out assembly guides, and that experience. Figuring out all these random bugs that came up, like the initial boxes that we got were too thin because we were shipping them via freight to our enterprise staging areas and assembling them and then delivering them. And so we had never really shipped our boxes via UPS, and they were just too thin. Like the chairs kept poking out. And so we had to fix that. And so
It's crazy.
what did it, yeah, like, yeah, and like these people really looking forward to their chairs, they come up all scratched. And so it was a pretty stressful, I would say, 6 weeks where we redid basically everything. And then it started to pay off. So in May, we went from all of a sudden being, completely crushed to getting back very close to the revenue we were doing in March. And it was all consumer. It was basically like building a brand new business from scratch.
That's amazing, and I feel like, right, the benefits, if there are any, like the silver lining is, you guys were still relatively small, so super nimble. You weren't overextended in terms of all this inventory, I'm assuming, and so you were able to make those quick pivots. What's interesting is, you know, the three of you and anyone else on your team likely didn't have, or maybe had but hadn't thought about, the direct to consumer skill set, right? That, as you mentioned, how do we do growth marketing? How do we do customer acquisition, messaging, delivery? All those things are net new skills that you learned in like 2 months, which is a testament to you guys, right? How impressive it is, but also, it shows that it's I guess easier to build that kind of business than the initial type of office furniture type of business that you built. So it's fascinating. I'd love to hear about, what are some of the things that you assumed right in April when you were like, I got to figure this out. What were some of those things you thought, and then now 6 months later were different than your expectations?
You make a good point. I think it is probably easier to start a D2C business from scratch, which also makes it a more competitive business and ultimately, I think, a less attractive business. I don't think any of us wanted to start a D2C business for that exact reason. We wanted to start an enterprise business where we could really create a moat that extended from the furniture through the operational experience, through the project management. And so we definitely had a different vision in mind. But I think, some of the things that we have learned that are different. One is, it sounds kind of obvious, but when we were an enterprise focused company, we were selling not just furniture, we were selling an experience, we were selling a service just as much as a product. And we had to really rapidly iterate on that mindset where, as a consumer, all you care about is the product. Like it needs to show up completely pristine. It needs to have a great assembly guide. It needs to have a great unboxing. And all that stuff takes a while to do. And so just getting to that focus of like, okay, now we just need to focus completely on the product and making it perfect, that whole experience. That was definitely something that we had to figure out pretty fast. That we just didn't quite realize. We're like, okay, we'll just ship them the same chairs. No, they need to be completely differently packaged and boxed, and it just needs to be better. Um, and similarly, I would say I mean, even the online product, the e-commerce store, when we were selling to enterprises, they were educated buyers by and large, and so we could throw them a little more jargon. We could be a little bit more, I think, obtuse in the way we described ourselves and trust them to figure it out. Again, I think with D2C, you just have to be better. You have to communicate your benefits more clearly. You have to make the site really easy to navigate. And so I would say overall, because it is an easier business to kind of get started in, I think the bar is raised when it comes to executing on the core value prop that you're delivering across every part of the business. Another assumption that I think is a little bit more specific. We thought that we would just have to play the paid marketing game like everyone else, and we do have to, and we are scaling our paid efforts. But if in case you see a branch ad, it's not an imposter, but we did have a lot of success with revenue aligned organic channels, and without getting too specific, like affiliate has been really big for us. Google has been big for us, organic Google. And so it was really nice to know that there are channels that exist, particularly when there's such a big macro demand for your product that you don't have to pay an arm and a leg for, and that you're really only paying for when it's actually delivering you revenue. And so revenue aligned channels, I think, have been fascinating and helpful for us to explore. So it's not just about hitting up Facebook and Instagram, and ultimately it's just too expensive anyway, and it gets worse, right? The more competition there is. So not a game we want to play fully.